welcome to The Firm. On the show this week, the good, bad and ugly of the new telecom M&A norms. Clarity or confusion? What has the government achieved with its latest notification on Section 185 of the Companies Act 2013? Alright, let's get to the top story this week. 900 million telecom subscribers in India and 15 operators. For instance, in Delhi, there are some 8 cellular service providers. Mumbai has 8 as well. UP West has 9 and Gujarat has 10. Is India's telecom sector ripe for consolidation? But more importantly, will the government's new M&A guidelines support M&A or hinder it? Well, joining me today to discuss the future of M&A in telecom, Rahul Mathan of Trilegal and Jaideep Ghosh of KPMG. Gentlemen, to both of you, a warm welcome to The Firm. Jaideep, I'm going to start first with you, and I'm going to first put on the table the big positive that's emerging from these guidelines, which is a raising of the market share ceiling to 50% of subscribers or 50% of revenue in a circle. That's the big positive I'm listing. Which are the other positives that you'd like to add to this, and what do you make of them?
I think 50% market share is something which is definitely positive. I would also put that there is a spectrum limit of 25% in one circle and 50% within a particular band. I think given the global precedents that we've seen, I think definitely that's also positive and in line with the global trend of having 4 to 5 telecom operators operating in a particular region. I think these two are the key positives. But above all, I think the policy provides a lot of clarity in terms of the key ingredients of it, so that if consolidation is to happen, at least the market players know what is there in the policy and they know it pretty much clearly.
Rahul, would you agree that there is a lot of clarity in the policy? Because I imagine you've been reading that 5-6 page document with a lawyer's eye.
So, I mean, absolutely, these are all positives, and I don't want to say that moving from 40 to 50% is not a positive. I think also moving up to 25% essentially says that you can go down to as low as 4 operators per circle. But I don't think there is as much clarity as Jaideep is holding out, because as we look through some of the details, I think there is still a fair bit that we need to read through the lines to get at. One of the things that I think a lot of our clients would have been happy to see in the M&A guidelines is some clear statement that we don't require a DOT approval for a merger. Now, the earlier guidelines, the 2008 guidelines, very clearly said that you will need prior approval in order to complete a merger. These guidelines don't have that statement, but they do say that you need to submit your application, the scheme, to the DOT, and if the DOT has any objections, they'll get back to you in 30 days. They also go on to say that the whole transfer must take place within a year. But later on, much later on in the regulations, there is a line which says that you need to clear your dues before the permission will be granted, which seems to indicate that there is still this DOT permission that is required before the merger can be complete. And really, most of the mergers that have dragged on in the telecom sector have dragged on because of this uncertainty as to whether the DOT approval is coming or not.
Yeah, I think, when I say clarity, I mean at least, I didn't essentially mean that this policy is an enabler for immediate consolidation. In fact, I think this policy is not an enabler. It just provides clarity that yes, DOT concurrence is needed. It does provide the clarity that within 1 year you need to get the approvals. It does provide clarity that yes, you have to pay for additional spectrum above a certain limit. So to that extent, at least the market operators know. Whether this will result in a lot of consolidation, does it facilitate, enable? I think no, that is not what I think is going to happen very soon because of this particular policy.
All right, so you've touched upon the fact that you do believe, as Rahul raised, that yes, permission will be required, and you've also touched upon the key negative that these M&A guidelines throw up, which is that any acquirer has to pay the difference between the spectrum acquired by the target at an entry fee price and the last determined auction price, and this difference has to be paid to the government. Now, I can see the government's point of view in all of this, but I'm curious to know, Jaideep, what you make of how this kills M&A activity altogether if there are certain telecom operators who are hoping to benefit mostly from a spectrum valuation point of view.
See, I think if the motive for acquisition of the company which is acquiring is spectrum, I think there are other ways to get into it. Essentially, there are two other things. One is spectrum trading and spectrum sharing. These would be allowed in some point of time, and spectrum trading would be allowed far sooner. So I think if spectrum is the motive, there are far easier ways to meet that objective rather than going through the entire process of a merger, acquisition, valuation, integration, so on and so forth. However, if the motive is to get access to quality subscribers, access to infrastructure, assets, IP, and so on and so forth, then definitely we could see some consolidation happening.
Look, I don't think the government could have done it any other way, and I agree with Jaideep. I think if we have embarked upon this path, which is that there is a auction determined price, then it would be unfair for people to use M&A to try and create some sort of an arbitrage. And so I think where there is some entry fee spectrum, the difference clearly would need to be made up in some way. This is what the government has chosen. I think once again there's a slight ambiguity in the way in which it is drafted, which could lead to loopholes and people exploiting the language. I'm sure the government will come up with clarifications as we go on. But as it's currently written, the regulations, the guidelines say that if the acquired company has spectrum which is at the entry fee, then after the acquisition, the difference between the entry fee and the auction price needs to be made up, which implies, since the contrary has not been prohibited, that if the acquired company has auction paid spectrum, then and if the acquiring company has got entry fee spectrum, there's no obligation for the resulting company to actually pay the difference. This seems to imply that you could do reverse mergers and come up with structures that could avoid the payment of this top-up. But I would suspect that's not the intention of the government, and that we will find that if you try to do things like that, there may be some clarifications coming out on the guidelines.
I think we shouldn't see reverse merger kind of arrangements, because business-wise, otherwise they don't make any sense. So I think some clarification may be provided at a later point of time. We must also remember that except for the new telecom operators post the license cancellation, whoever has bid in the last 2 or 3 auctions, which is essentially Uninor or the Telewings, Telenor India, and MTS, and 1 or 2 Videocon maybe. All the others actually have administered priced spectrum. It could be a little, it could be more, and some of them, for instance, in case of ASL, it's for a fairly long period. I think somewhere almost 10-12 years from now. And similarly for Reliance Communications and Tata Teleservices, their license renewal come up only, I think, 2018, 2022, so on and so forth. So I think the issues will come more if the mid-sized operators or the 4th and the 5th operators wants to kind of do M&A activities. These issues will definitely crop up. But if it's one of the newer operators, then mostly they have got spectrum to auction. Hence, definitely there is no need to pay anything additional over and above, because there is nothing called administered price spectrum that they have.
All right, so I think we've all ruled out spectrum-based M&A taking place, given this safeguard that the government has put in. So my question to both of you now, and starting with you first, Jaideep, is what kind of M&A are these guidelines going to support? If your case is that 14, 15 operators, a circle sometimes is 10, 12, is clearly unsustainable from a business point of view. Consolidation is the need of the hour. Are we going to see that consolidation take place? What will be the key drivers based on the restrictions that these guidelines put in place?
Based on different analysis that we've done, we've come to a conclusion that 4 or 5 operators is what is ideal, and even the spectrum guidelines 25% cap, etc., indicates that there should be 4 or maximum 5 operators. In that context, I think acquisition should only happen in specific circles, specific service areas, to fill in some white spaces of the acquiring company, or to get specific circles good quality customers, or to get the assets, the infrastructure for a wide scale. If like the number 2 operator kind of tries to acquire the number 5 or 6, then it could be possibly for a big time acquisition, including assets and IP and customers and so on and so forth. But there the big bottleneck would come, in my opinion, is the valuation, the deal price and the negotiations and expectations matching.
But those are all
and so on and so
commercial
forth. So I
issues.
think-
Jaideep, those are all commercial issues. Let me put to you two hypothetical consolidation situations that have been doing the round in the newsrooms for a long time, and you tell me whether these guidelines support those combinations or not, just from a guideline point of view. For instance, there is all this talk of Vodafone and the Tata's telecom business, right? Will these guidelines allow for such a combination to take place? There's also been that slightly crazy rumor of Reliance Communications and Reliance Jio. I'm not saying any of these deals are going to happen. I'm just asking you if guidelines currently as put out this week would allow for these kinds of combinations to take place.
Yes, and absolutely, considering as purely hypothetical case, and all these companies are my clients or KPMG's clients, so definitely from a hypothetical perspective, in terms of a revenue market share and subscriber market share and a spectrum holding, in most of the circles, some of these, acquisition merger could definitely, theoretically is possible, yes.
I think consolidation is bound to happen. I don't think we're going to see what people expect, which is these big mega mergers with very large players acquiring each other and becoming this huge behemoth. I just don't think that's likely. What I think we'll see is a lot of strategic mergers. You'll find footprint-based mergers, people picking and choosing areas where they need additional quality customers, where they need to have additional infrastructure to supplement what they currently have. Things like that.
If you're ruling out combinations amongst the top players, then you're saying essentially the potential targets are the smaller players like Videocon, which might have only a handful of circles, or even Uninor is a new player. It intends to have a national footprint. MTS again wants a national footprint. I think Spice has 1 or 2 circles. So it's really those players that are potential targets, and you don't see the big ones coming together.
Well, look, I don't. As I said, I don't see a huge big bang merger. Clearly, the top 3 in the market today can't, even under these guidelines, merge because the market share, the combined market share, will be too high. And then it will be a mix and match of the others. It could be, one small new player could be completely consumed, or it could be certain strategic decisions. Where some of the slightly mid-sized players could, either divvy up their current circles among 2 or 3 telcos, or do something strategic along those lines.
I don't see much merit in bigger telcos acquiring them, because the subscriber base of the smaller telecom operators at this point of time is not that high, not that significant. What is there for a large telecom operator that it cannot do it by its own?
You're saying that there will be consolidation amongst the top 5 and the top 6, not really as many smaller deals that target circle-wise, operators.
Yeah, amongst the top 5 or 6, there could be some alignments happening. I don't see much merit in number 1 acquiring probably number 10 at this point of time, except if there is some strategic reason in a given circle or something like that.
Rahul, one final legal question in this debate, and that has to do with where CCI stands in this scheme of things. Telecom is one of those few sectors in this country that have their own M&A guidelines, but I'm sure that the Competition Commission of India will also look at combinations that may, in a sense, be seen as anti-competitive, or will they restrict themselves only to actions that seem anti-competitive? So I'm saying, will these 50% thresholds, sort of bear at the CCI as well, or will CCI have a different way of looking at this?
So, look, the telecom sector is a unique sector, and the TRAI, when it examined the sector, actually stated that between 30 to 50% is what is the international norm. Once the sector expert, which is the TRAI, which has actually done a lot of in-depth analysis of the subject, comes to that conclusion, I don't think the CCI is likely to intervene and question that threshold. And as a matter of actual fact, the Indian telecom environment is extremely competitive, and the competition actually comes from the very small players. So it's not and this is what the TRAI says in its recommendations, it's not as if the existence of a large telecom player is hindering competition at the lower end of the market in any way. Which means that unless, as you said, there is anti-competitive actions other than the market share issue, it is unlikely, in my view, that the CCI is going to question this 50% limit and basically open up mergers that are even lower than the 50% limit.
All right, gentlemen, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us to give us a sense of what the future of telecom M&A looks like. With that, we're going to head into a quick break on The Firm. When we come back, clarity or confusion? What has the government achieved with its latest notification on Section 185 of the Companies Act 2013?